Hello America, this is Call of Duty Goddess. Today is February 26, 2016. In this continuation of the Exposing the Beast System series, I will be talking about the armies of the secret societies. That will include Islam and intelligence agencies. There is another, but they are connected to other things, and I will be discussing that one in another video. So let's get started. Now, the first way to connect secret societies and Islam is obviously in the symbology. In the secret societies, as well as Islam and many other religions, it's paganism. Paganism is basically, when you get down to the bare bones, paganism is sex worship. They worship sex. Okay? That's just the plain and simple of it. They worship sex. Now you can see that if you go to Washington, D.C., the symbology is there, it's just hidden. And it is so sexual. Once you know what it is, your life will be forever changed. So all we're going to look at in D.C. is just the Washington Monument and the waiting pool. We will start here with the Washington Monument, the male phallic symbol, as well as the waiting pool, the female symbol. Okay? Here's an aerial view of the Washington Monument. Very sexual in nature. Wouldn't you agree? And yet another. And we could literally spend all day looking at sexual pictures in DC, because basically that's all it is the paganistic sexual architecture. Now, this is what the Muslims bow down to 5 times a day in Mecca. This is what they make their pilgrimage to. The black stone is inside of this thing. Now, what does it look like to you at first glance? It looks like a female sexual organ. This is traced back to the pre-Islamic moon goddess worship, and they have god-goddess worship. And it's all paganism, okay? So you saw that, and I'm not going to get involved in that. This gets dirtier and dirtier as we go, and you got the idea. So there's no point in just looking at symbology, because believe me when I tell you, we have much bigger fish to fry here. When you find out who's involved and what they did and what they received for it, it's pretty damning. Now the other way they connect is through the Muslim Shriners, okay? Through the Shriners. Now I'm going to say right up front that I know that in secret societies there's a certain type of duality. Black and white checkered floor is another symbology. The yin and the yang. There's a duality about it. It's my contention that the duality is you have to do a certain amount of good to be able to do this bad. So like the Muslim, the Shriners have that Shriner Hospital. One of the first secret societies, the Knights of Malta, they created hospitals. So all of your secret societies are going to have a certain bit of duality involved with them. That's good and bad. Now, if you can get past this, I made a video on my other account about Shriners, probably about a year ago. I connected the Shriners to secret societies through the Muslims. And a lot of people, when I showed this, Louis Farrakhan, a lot of people, as soon as they commented, as soon as they saw his face, they turned it off. Well, I'm here to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, how are you going to learn the truth? How are you going to know what's going on unless you hear and see things that you don't want to hear and see? There are days when I can't stand to look at some people because I hate them so much. Because of what they've done to my country and basically my world. But I have to listen in order to learn. And there's days when I can't, but you have to really give it a chance and listen and learn. Anyway, let's hear what Louis Farrakhan has to say about this, because he tells you, first of all, Nation of Islam. I've got to tell you, I've studied Islam. I've read the Quran, I've read the Hadith, and Nation of Islam is a horse of another color. From what I can gather, Nation of Islam is a mix of your Freemason, your Shriner, and Islam. So it's all of that just bunched into one. It's different, a little bit different. So anyway, let's hear what Louis Farrakhan has to say.
I'm going into your secrets for a minute. Not you, Black Mason and Shriner. You don't have any secret. It's the white Masons and Shriners that we're going to expose in a minute. And listen to this. At least 9 of the 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence were Freemasons. George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, James Monroe, John Jay, John Hancock, Paul Revere, John Paul Jones, and James Otis. Later on in 1870,
okay, I'm going to stop it right there. 1870, 1871. Very significant time for America. It's my contention we lost our country at that time. Also happens to be the time when Albert Pike finished his book and mixed it in with the Scottish Freemasonry, and basically it ended up being their Bible. So let's check that out. Now, without getting too involved in the book Morals and Dogma that Albert Pike wrote, I believe he was very pivotal in the role of the secret societies. He was pivotal in the aspect of who his close friends were. Also, he was very pivotal, as I said, in writing Morals and Dogma, which ended up being the Scottish Rite Freemasonry Bible. He also wrote about 3 world wars. So we'll just skim down here and we'll get the gist of what he is. And of course, I'll leave all the links below, and I'll even leave you a free PDF download for Morals and Dogma. I've got to say this before I really get into Pike here. If you think I'm driving you to crazy town, you might as well click off now, because I have researched this for a very long time. And for the longest time, I refused to believe in the secret societies. I absolutely refused to. But slowly, when I realized the absolute truth, there's no doubt that our world is run by secret societies. No doubt in my mind. So with that in mind, let's get to know Albert Pike and what I believe is his hand in the destruction of America. Very few outsiders know about the intimate plans of Albert Pike and the architects of the New World Order. In the 19th century, Albert Pike established a framework for bringing about the One World Order. Based on a vision revealed to him, Albert Pike wrote a blueprint of events that would play themselves out in the 20th century. With even more of these events yet to come, it is the blueprint which we believe unseen leaders are following today, knowingly or not, to engineer the planned third and final war. Albert Pike was born December 29, 1809 in Boston. He studied at Harvard, later served as a brigadier general in the Confederate Army. After the Civil War, Pike was found guilty of treason and jailed, only to be pardoned by fellow Freemason President Andrew Jackson on April 22, 1866, who met with him the next day at the White House. On June 20th, 1867, Scottish Rite officials conferred upon Johnson the 4th and 32nd Freemasonry degrees, and he later went to Boston to dedicate a Masonic temple. Pike was said to be a genius, able to read and write in 16 different languages, although I cannot find a record anywhere of what these languages were. In addition, he is widely accused of plagiarism, so I take that with a pinch of salt. At various stages of his life, he was a poet, philosopher, frontiersman, soldier, humanitarian, and philanthropist. A 33rd degree Freemason, he was one of the founding fathers and head of the ancient accepted Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, being the Grand Commander of the North American Freemasonry from 1859, and retained that position until his death in 1891. In 1869, he was a top leader in the Knights of the Ku Klux Klan. Pike was said to be a Satanist who indulged in the occult, and he apparently possessed a bracelet which he used to summon Lucifer, with whom he had constant communication. He was the Grand Master of a Luciferian group known as the Order of the Palladium, or Sovereign Council of Wisdom, which had been founded in Paris in 1737. Palladianism had been brought to Greece from Egypt by Pythagoras in the 5th century, and it was this cult of Satan that was introduced to the inner circle of South Carolina, where he helped to establish the ancient and accepted Scottish Rite. Pike's right-hand man was Filius Walder from Switzerland, who was a former Lutheran minister, a Masonic leader, occultist, and spiritualist. Pike also worked closely with Giuseppe Mazzini of Italy, 1805 to 1872, who was a 33rd degree Freemason and became head of the Illuminati in 1834, and who founded the Mafia in 1860. Together with Mazzini, Lord Henry Palmerston of England from 1784 to 1865, 33rd degree Mason, and Otto von Bismarck from Germany, 1815 to 1898, 33rd degree Mason, Albert Pike intended to use the Palladium Rite to create a satanic umbrella group that would tie all Masonic groups together. Albert Pike died on April 2nd, 1891, and was buried in Oak Hill Cemetery, although the corpse of Pike currently lies in the headquarters of the Council of the 33rd degree of the Scottish Rite Freemasonry in Washington, D.C. Now, Albert Pike was closely connected with the Illuminati, and that's where some things come into play. That's where I think we lost our country. He had a lot to do with it. So let's read on. Adam Weishaupt, 1748 to 1811, formed the Order of Perfectibilists on May 1st, 1776, to this day celebrated as May Day throughout many Western countries, which later became known as the Illuminati, a secret society whose name means enlightened ones. Although the order was founded to provide an opportunity for the free exchange of ideas, Weishaupt's background as a Jesuit seems to have influenced the actual character of the society, such that the express aim of this order became to abolish Christianity and overturn all civil government. So you see, the aim of that order is to abolish Christianity and to overturn all civil government. What is happening today? Christianity is just being bashed. In other nations, people are being killed and arrested for being Christians. Now, that's been going on forever. I know, I realize that. But now it's on steroids. And overturning the civil government, hello? I mean, people are getting arrested for barely doing anything and put in prison in solitary confinement for barely doing anything. And then you have people breaking into stores, killing people, looting, burning cars, just doing horrible things, and nothing's happening to them. This is where this stuff comes into play. An Italian revolutionary leader, Giuseppe Mazzini, from 1805 to 1872, a 33rd degree Freemason, was selected by the Illuminati to head their worldwide operations in 1834. Mazzini also founded the Mafia in 1860. Because of Mazzini's revolutionary activities in Europe, the Bavarian government cracked down on the Illuminati and other secret societies for allegedly plotting a massive overthrow of Europe's monarchies. As the secrets of the Illuminati were revealed, they were persecuted and eventually disbanded, only to reestablish themselves in the depths of other organizations, of which Freemasonry was one. During his leadership, Mazzini enticed Albert Pike into the now formally disbanded but still operating Illuminati. Pike was fascinated by the idea of a one-world government, and when asked by Mazzini, readily agreed to write a ritual tome that guided the transition from average high-ranking Mason into a top-ranking Illuminati Mason, 33rd degree. Since Mazzini also wanted Pike to head the Illuminati's American chapter, he clearly felt Pike was worthy of such a task. Mazzini's intention was that once a Mason had made his way up to the Freemason ladder and proven himself worthy, the highest ranking members would offer membership to the secret society within the society. It is for this reason that most Freemasons vehemently deny the evil intentions of their fraternity, since the vast majority never reach the 30th degree. They would not even be aware of the real purpose behind Masonry. When instructing Pike how the tome should be developed, Mazzini wrote the following to Pike in a letter dated January 22nd, 1870. Remember that Freemasonry wasn't started by Pike. Rather, it was infiltrated by the Illuminati, who were looking for a respectable forum in which to hide their clandestine activities. We must allow all the federations to continue just as they are, with their systems, their central authorities, and their diverse modes of correspondence between high grades of the same rite, organized as they are at the present, but we must create a super rite, which will remain unknown, to which we will call the Masons of high degree whom we shall select. With regard to our brothers in Masonry, these men must be pledges to the strictest secrecy. Through this supreme rite, we will govern all Freemasonry, which will become the one international center, the more powerful because its direction will be unknown. In 1871, Pike published the 861-page Masonic handbook known as the Morals and Dogma of the ancient and accepted Scottish rite of Freemasonry. After Mazzini's death on March 11, 1872, Pike appointed Adriano Lemmy, 1822 to 1896, 33rd degree Freemason, a banker from Florence, Italy, to run their subversive activities in Europe. Lemmy was a supporter of patriot and revolutionary Giuseppe Garibaldi, and may have been active in the Luciferian Society founded by Pike. Lemmy in turn was succeeded by Lenin and Trotsky, then by Stalin. The revolutionary activities of all these men were financed by British, French, German, and American international bankers, all of them dominated by the House of Rothschild. Between 1859 and 1871, Pike worked out a military blueprint for 3 world wars and various revolutions throughout the world, which he considered would forward the conspiracy to its final stage in the 20th century. In addition to the Supreme Council in Charleston, South Carolina, Pike established Supreme Councils in Rome, Italy, led by Mazzini, London, England, led by Palmerston, and Berlin, Germany, led by Bismarck. He set up 23 subordinate councils in strategic places throughout the world, including 5 Grand Central Directories in Washington, D.C., North America, Montevideo, South America, Naples in Europe, Calcutta in Asia, and Mauritius in Africa, which were used to gather information. All of these branches have been the secret headquarters for the Illuminati's activities ever since. So as you can see, with the history of Albert Pike, the timing is perfect. How this ties together, I don't know. Maybe we'll find out. But I do not find it coincidental at all that the Muslim Shriners became engulfed in Freemasonry at the same time Albert Pike infiltrated with the Illuminati. Keep in mind, the Illuminati's goal is global governance. The goal of Islam is a global caliphate, jihad, to take over the world with their religion. And you cannot find a more perfect so-called religion than this totalitarian system called Islam, which has laws and everything all wrapped up into one. The term Islam means submission. So when you think about it that way, you have Sharia built into it. My goodness, you have an army of killers that want to take over the world that'll do your bidding for you. Is it no wonder when you see over in Europe with Merkel and all of the European leaders, and Obama especially, inviting all of these Muslims in? It's a plan. It's a plan. And I've got to tell you, many of these Muslims, they don't know this. Everybody gets their orders from someone. So let's continue.
1870, out of Freemasonry came a higher order of Masons called the Shriners. Now, the difference between Masons and Shriners is that to be a Shriner, you must be a master Mason in good standing. Now, those of you who don't know anything about this, just hold your seats.
Now, he said, in order to become a Shriner, you must be a master Mason in good standing. So, I wonder if this was brought in 1870 because of this. Now, he said 1870. My contingency is 1871. It's only 1 year. What's the difference? So let me read this again. What Mazzini wrote in a letter to Albert Pike about the infiltration of the Freemasons. He wrote, "We must allow all the federations to continue just as they are, with their systems, their central authorities, and their diverse modes of correspondence between high grades of the same rite, organized as they are at the present, but we must create a super rite, which will remain unknown, to which we will call these Masons of high degree, to whom we shall select. With regard to our brothers in Masonry, these men must be pledges to the strictest secrecy. Though this supreme rite we will govern all Freemasonry, which will become the one international center, the more powerful because its direction will be unknown." I wonder if this is how the imams get their orders, through the Shriners. You understand what I'm saying? Because you see, in Islam, the imams or religious leaders have all of the power. They have the sole power. Most Islamic countries are basically ran by the religious leaders, the imams and such. So a fatwa is issued because imams, the religious leaders, have all of the power. They can issue a fatwa at any time, and it can be anything they want. So these imams have a lot of power, okay? And when you hear this, Islam is a peaceful religion, it's so peaceful, it's bullcrap. They have a thing called taqiyya. Taqiyya basically allows anyone that is Islamic to lie to the non-Islamic person, you know, for any reason. They can even deny that they are a Muslim. It doesn't matter. The ends justify the means in this totalitarian system. It is a very dangerous system, and it was set up for the sole purpose of global domination through the sword, through Hijra. Hijra is mass migration through population increase. When the Muslims get to 20% population increase, that's when they start crying for Sharia. This is not a joke. I am not racist. I am honest. And I know about this religion. Be wise as snakes, my Bible says. So that's what I do. I study and I've learned to try to be as wise as a snake. So anyway, with that said, this religion is the perfect thing to subvert. Not only subvert, because the Muslim Brotherhood has already subverted every level of our government, every level of it. I mean, and that's how the Islamic totalitarian system gets into the Western world. We are basically a democracy. And in the terms, we are not a democracy. We are a democratic republic in America. But when I say democracy, I mean we are a free and open society who allow people in. We are a trusting society, and they take advantage of that. Now, if you want to call me racist, go right ahead. I know what I'm talking about.
A Shriner belongs to the ancient Arabic order of the nobles of the mystic shrine.
Okay, ancient Arabic order of the nobles of the mystic shrine. Let's look at that for a second. Now, if you've looked into secret societies at all, I'm sure you've seen this or heard of it. It's on the back of the $1 bill, of course, and it's letters that say Mason, M-A-S-O-N. It also means Ancient Noble Order of the Mystic Shrine. It actually makes more sense because it just follows the line right like that, like a horseshoe shape. Ancient Noble Order of the Mystic Shrine. Now, to me, this is very significant because knowing Islam and what Islam's purpose is to rule the world with Sharia. It's the perfect combination, and it's my contention in 1871 that's when this started. So let's continue with Louis Farrakhan, see how much more information we can get out of him. Well, before I do that, I also want to show you the crescent moon and star, the Islamic symbology there, and you have the knife there as well. So that's definitely Islam and its Shriners. So let's go on to hear what Farrakhan has to say.
And all their temples or mosques are named after cities like Mecca, Medina, Syria, Aleppo. These are all parts of the Muslim world. So Arabic is in their name to describe the nobles. And a noble is a hereditary class that has special social political status in a country or state. And all white Shriners have an exalted or noble political and social status in America and nations throughout the world. Now they talk about...
Now that's very significant. All white Shriners have a significant place throughout the world. Let's hear that again. Very significant.
And a noble is a hereditary class that has special social political status in a country or state. And all white Shriners have an exalted or noble political and social status in America and nations throughout the world. Now
they have noble and political status in the United States and nations throughout the world. The Shriners do. And it's my contention that Albert Pike helped with that. With regard to our brothers in Masonry, these men must be pledges to the strictest secrecy. Through this supreme right, we will govern all Freemasonry, which will become the one international center, the more powerful because its direction will be unknown. Very, very significant. Now, let's look and see who are these noble Shriners. Well, as it turns out, we had 4 presidents that were Shriners. Warren Harding, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the New Deal, FDR, Harry Truman, and Gerald Ford. Now, I'd like to point your attention also, and I have no idea about this, but it just gets my bells ringing. X. Pascual Ortiz Rubio. Rubio is his last name. Now, also, from what I have learned, Freemasonry is sort of like a religion. And I mean that in the aspect of, let's say I'm a Freemason. When my daughter or son turns 18, I bring them into the fold, just like a religion. So there was one other president who was not a Freemason, but he became an honorary Shriner. He was not a Shriner, but became an honorary Shriner. Let me show you who that was. But first, we need to talk about Operation Cyclone. In the late 70s, President Jimmy Carter began a covert CIA operation in Afghanistan known as Operation Cyclone. The goal of the mission was to train and arm ragtag freedom fighters in the hills of Afghanistan to fight against occupying Soviet forces. At the time, the fighters were known as the Mujahideen. We now know them as Osama bin Laden, the Taliban, and Al-Qaeda. Like the CIA's overthrow of the democratically elected Iranian government in 1953, Operation Cyclone resulted in serious blowback and further fueled the rise of radical Islam. So, Jimmy Carter started Operation Cyclone with CIA. And I'm just doing this little timeline here, when President Reagan came into office, there was an assassination attempt on his life shortly after he came into office. After that, he picked up Operation Cyclone and went full speed ahead with Operation Cyclone. It worked so well that Gorbachev tore down the wall and the Russians went home. Now, what happens after that is very telling. In February 29, 1988, in Washington, D.C., President Ronald Reagan was named an honorary member of the Shrine Fraternity in a ceremony held at the White House on Thursday, February 11th. The highest-ranking official of the Shrine, Imperial Pontiff Boris King, presented Reagan with a certificate naming him an honorary member of the Imperial Council in the ancient Arabic order of the Nobles of the Mystic Shrine, in a private ceremony held in the Oval Office. We decided to make President Reagan an honorary Shriner because of his devotion to peace and prosperity and his compassion to mankind, King said. King also presented the president with a gift, a gavel made of wood of a tree which stood on the site where the first Shriners Hospital for Crippled Children was built in 1922 in Shreveport, Louisiana. Reagan was also honored by the Masons during the ceremony. Sovereign Grand Commanders of the Scottish Rite, Northern and Southern jurisdictions respectively, presented Reagan with an honorary membership to the Scottish Rite. Raymond F. McMullen, Grand Master of the District of Columbia Grand Lodge, presented the President a certificate of honor. During the same ceremony, Shrine and Scottish Rite officials were awarded private sector initiative commendations by President Reagan for their organization's humanitarian efforts. Now, ladies and gentlemen, he was given all these awards by the Shriners and by these Freemasons, in which their goal is global dominance. In 1871, the secret society of the Freemasons was taken over by Albert Pike, was infiltrated with the Illuminati through Albert Pike. It was then that the Shriners were enfolded into the secret society. It's my contention, in order to use them to get to the Muslims, because their Quran tells them to kill the infidel. Their Quran repeats it over and over. Kill the infidel. They have an army. They have an unabridged army, and they can, at a moment's notice, call on the imams and tell them, hey, call the caliphate, call jihad. And that's what has happened, ladies and gentlemen. The Muslims are being used, just like the rest of us. But the Muslims happen to be the ones that are killing everyone. So, with President Reagan receiving all these prestigious awards, Not only did President Reagan arm and train the Mujahideen via the CIA, which turned into the Taliban, but the more important thing was he got Gorbachev to tear down the wall. Tearing down that wall was the very beginning of the New World Order. You cannot have a New World Order with that wall up. And when he had that torn down, that's the very beginning of the New World Order and the arming of the Muslim terrorists to take over the world. You cannot get any plainer than that. It's just that simple. You see, ladies and gentlemen, the intelligence agencies, the CIA, MI6, Mossad, they're all used for this as well. When you see that double-headed phoenix from here to Russia, they're all working together. They are the ones in control. And what can we do to stop it? I do not know, but I know one thing. We've got something that they don't. We've got God. Well, America, that's my take on the armies of the secret societies. I hope you've learned something, and if you have anything to add, please don't hesitate to leave a comment below. I'll leave all the links, and God bless. This is Call of Duty Goddess signing off, and as always, I've got your 6.